I think the reason why I was able to do a bodybuilding competition was because of spending all the time as an entrepreneur, and not having and knowing what it feels like to have your back against the wall, not really having a life raft in a lot of situations, and just having to bet on yourself all the time. That definitely played a part in me being able to actually go through with it and make it to the finish line. Which is why I'm thrilled.
Really good point.
I'm thrilled to be on your podcast because I know that, from your last episodes that I've seen, that's what you guys talk about. And so that's pretty sick.
The Move Entrepreneur Evolved Podcast. Get on it.
And we're back here with another episode of the Moved Entrepreneur Evolved Podcast. I'm excited about this episode. Not many episodes do I have the opportunity to have someone in the studio. So I'm very excited here. I'm here with Josh Copeland with Josh Wrote That. He is a personal friend of mine, but also a business acquaintance as well here in San Diego. Man, how you doing?
I'm great, man. Thank you so much for having me. I love doing podcasts, and you have a pretty sick house too. So yeah, man, this is just dope.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. So what we like to do here quite often is draw us back to things we do as business owners, and usually the story that gets us there. And I was doing a little of my homework, and we have a journey of, there's a few things that I'll probably tap into, things that I always enjoy. And that is that life isn't just about our business, but also those extra, activities that we do. And you're one of those guys that I think has a great story. So I'm going to pull you back a little. And I know you didn't start with copy, right? You probably started in some other things. What was maybe major in college, or what was that process for you?
Well, I've always loved writing, and I loved writing. I thought that my real passion though was track and field. So throughout my academic career in school, I was always in track and field, and I was running cross country and running, and then but I've always had like a latent talent, I like to call it, like a hidden ability that I was able to ace my English classes without question or without much effort, while I would have hard time with math and science. And when I was in college, when I got to Cal State San Marcos, I ended up getting injured. That pretty much took me out of my track season even before it started. Like it was painful, and so to avoid depression, because I banked all my energy into being a track star.
Sure.
Someone has suggested, hey, in my writing classes, because I was majoring in writing, they were like, hey, you want to write for the newspaper? I need some writers. And so I started writing for the newspaper, and I wrote an article that ended up going viral, and I ended up using catchy phrases. I remember there was this lady on campus that would come on campus, and she was like a diehard Christian, and she would like go on campus with these crazy radical signs telling us that we were all going to go to hell and all those stuff. And one day she came on campus, and she was holding up a sign that says, "If you're wearing leggings, you're a whore." And
that was good timing.
Yeah, all right. I was probably silent. This is freaking goofy.
That was good timing.
Yeah, if you're wearing leggings, you're epiphany.
It was good timing.
Yeah. So at the time, I just started writing for the newspaper, and I was like, "Is anybody going to write about this?" And they were like, "No one's going to write about this." And so,
opportunity knock.
Yeah, opportunity hell knock. So I was like, "Well, I'm going to write about this. This is amazing." So I wrote, does wearing leggings on school campus make you a whore? As a question mark. And before I knew it, everybody was talking about that article. And, I was like, oh, this is really, really cool. I can just get I could attract a ton of people with a really crazy headline. And, not only am I getting attention, but I'm getting them to engage in this article. I'm getting people to talk about this article. I'm getting people to, take action, go seek out the newspaper so they can read it for themselves. People were talking about, having conversations about it. People were doing all sorts of crazy stuff about it. It was like, wow, they're all doing this because they're responding to my article.
Got it.
And I was like, wow, I wonder what else I can make people do with words. And while I was in school, well, before I actually started college at Cal State San Marcos, I discovered copywriting, and I knew that this is what I wanted to do, but I also was like, well, maybe I should go to school, get a degree, do the safe route, and I wanted to have all my bases covered until I learned that school teachers don't make any money. No disrespect to any school teachers out there.
Yeah.
But they weren't, like they don't make too much money. And I wanted to make a lot of money writing words. I wanted to make a lot of money writing, period.
Sure.
And I didn't know if that was with a book, if I had to be a book writer or what. But when I discovered copywriting, I realized I can move people with words, and I can, I could get people to just take action and do things. And so while I was in school and after the newspaper incident, they made me opinion editor.
Got it.
They made me the opinion. They're like, yo, you're definitely going to be the opinion editor.
Well, one of the things that I thought was really cool, and I was looking back and doing some of my homework, and I think it's important to have people that supported you. And I saw something, it was almost 12 years ago. I was looking at the number.
Oh, jeez.
But you had a moment of just like, I want to thank you, your father, of just being a support system. And I thought that was really cool because, many times people need support. And when you're going off on a journey, which you basically did, he said, look, I'm going to take a risk. And, and not only that, I think you also tapped into something that, the transitions of how people get to where they're at sometimes comes with a collapse, and you're not in an anomaly of somebody that's an entrepreneur where they lost some sports or something fell out. Baseball players talk about in the minor leagues and said, well, what am I going to do now?
Right.
And I think that you did well in that transition, and you said, well, wait a minute, how can I at least position myself to have value? I'm gonna take you back a little bit, and there might have been that time. So you start writing, you start getting yourself recognized. You fortunately, I think that it's almost like you went out and kind of hit a mini home run, and you went, wait a minute, I could pull this off. So you kind of got a little jump, right?
Yeah.
But I was looking back on some of your stuff, and one of the things that came up, and you said, I just saw what I can't be unseen.
Oh.
What can't be unseen? The most horrifying. Abominable. Okay. Butchered it. Disrespectful thing I'd ever seen. Merlot poured in a goblet glass with ice in it. And I think that took you into a journey of wine, I'm sure. Started your snobism. Like, no, I'm just
you know what? That's fair. I'm a wannabe wine snob.
No. In those times, we tend to attach ourselves into some things that we like, and we'll dive into the passion of that. But what was going on in the years of 4 or 5 years ago? What was going on in your position of writing at that time?
During the time of that? Well, short backstory. Yeah, I was at my friend's house, and I wanted, at that time, I was getting into wines a little bit, and I really liked wines. I had been drinking wine since I was 7. I was actually converted into Judaism when I was, so that's where.
Wow.
Yeah, I was every Friday, Saturday we get, a little sip of wine, to start the Sabbath and the Shabbat and stuff like that.
Sure.
And anyway, fast forward to this party, this freaking a-hole, which shall not be named. I gave him a gift for him and his now wife, and it was a bottle of some delicious Blackstone Merlot. It was, so what? It's $10 from Walmart. That's not the point.
Yeah,
it's a good wine. Okay.
Sure.
And what ended up happening was he didn't have any glasses. That's fine. You just wait till you get glasses. No, not this guy. What does he do? He grabs the freaking goblet glass. If I remember correctly, I think it was a red cup, but we'll say goblet glass because I don't want to get more triggered than I already am.
That's true. Red Solo cup would get interesting. But it does have the line. It has that knit line you got.
No. Unacceptable.
Okay.
Yeah, this dude freaking takes a good glass, a good thing of Merlot, pours it. No, I think it was his cousin who was doing this. And then he puts ice in it and drinks it like it's a shot of whiskey. When I tell you I almost drop kicked him in the chest, I was like, what are you doing? No, oh gosh. Yeah, that was a goofy night. But
You were at that time though. You were actually writing for a few different you were writing for a project that you had a project that you were working on. I would say a passion project, but I would say it's a project maybe you were working on, or was it a writing project, or was it some friends there?
I think during that time, during 2017, I was trying to find my way. I was doing a lot of work on those bidding sites like Upwork and stuff like that, and
Fiverr, Upwork.
Yeah, and then I was also working full time, or was it part time, at Applebee's.
Sure.
So I was trying to make a way. I was hustling, but I was also grinding it out on trying to learn my skill set. And yeah, so during that time, and I might have been working on a project from Upwork. I don't remember completely, but yeah, during that time when I was hanging out with this guy. So I used to kick it with this guy named Caesar, and like I always looked up to him because he had his own business. He was blue collar. He was an arborist. He was cutting trees, and I mean, he had just bought a house. He had a beautiful wife now, and they had kids. And I was like, man, and he's like maybe 2 or 3 years older than me. I was like, I wish I could do that, but I want to do it with writing. And I would kind of like look to him and be like, wow, I could do that with this writing thing.
Sure. And
he would kind of try to encourage me as well, until I came into my own, and then I was like, yo, like I could actually do this. Like, I don't need a job anymore. I could actually go full time with this. Yeah. And I came to a point where I was given an opportunity to work with this guy, Jason Capital. Shout out to Jason Capital.
Sure.
That guy's a legend. At the time I had been following him on YouTube, and he was a copywriter and all this other stuff. And so like I desperately wanted a chance.
Now there's some things that he had done that some people may have actually remembered. And maybe what was his I don't want to say claim to fame, but what was the thing that he was doing that put him in the map?
Jason Capital started off as America's most honest dating coach. But one of the reasons why he became so popular was because, he did a lot of YouTube videos, but he used his copywriting skills to turn himself into a millionaire at the age of 24.
Got it.
And when I figured out, when I learned who he was, I wanted to be under him.
Yeah.
I wanted to write under him and stuff. And like, I got an opportunity when I was working at Zara's, and I came across, I had to make a choice, crossroad. Yeah. Because I didn't have time to work on this project that I was
sure.
I got like paid $5,000 for a project, and it was a lot of money to me at the time. And it was either that or spend all this time at this part-time dead-end job at Zara's. And I was like,
would you say that, and I know how this feels personally, but there becomes a risk to reward.
Yeah.
And anybody that's in a position of anybody that's watching this, if you're in a position where there's a risk to reward, if you have the support system, which you kind of had, and people see your work and they say, well, you can actually do this. I think that is the time you jump and give yourself a little foundation. You're never going to be there.
Uh-huh.
You're never really going to be in full, and you kind of have to position through that process. Going out and positioning yourself. What was that moment that you went, I can kind of stand on my own? Because I think people watching this will go through that in many phases. I think there's a lot of value in that of, what was your thoughts about, okay, now I feel like I'm this, or maybe it is for a while, it's imposter syndrome.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's definitely imposter syndrome when you're not like making any money, but you're the only one that's telling, everyone else around you is telling you, dude, just get a job. What are you doing? This copywriting thing isn't working, man. There's so many copywriters out there, bro. Burger King is hiring. Listen, I just saw hiring now at the post office. I mean, I got a job at the 24-hour fitness gym. You want a job there as a sales associate? And I'm like, no, I know I want to do this thing. Oh, you're just being lazy. Oh, pie in the sky, bro. Why don't you just go to this? Why don't you just do that? And like, no one really believes you. And what's hard about it is, you have some haters, but a majority of the opposition comes from people who love and care about you. And so they're just trying to do what they believe is in your best interest. But what they don't understand is the passion that you specifically have for this specific thing. And it's just one of those things that you kind of have to show to prove because it won't make sense.
I think that's really true. And they also they're not seeing the skill set that you've actually put in front. And so it's like, I don't know if you should do that because I don't know shit.
Right.
You know,
they
know something, and now you can take the risk. You can stand on the hill and you can kind of at least take a shot.
Dude, when I was learning copy, I was spending 8 hours a day. Sometimes even longer, rewriting letters and winners from the greats, or people like Gary Halbert, Gary Benzavenga, Joe Sugarman, John Carlton, all these people who have written these multi-million-dollar ads. I would take those now to rewrite them by hand, and sometimes my hands would cramp up. I'd fall asleep in the middle of writing. I was spending so much time trying to learn this skill set so that I could one day be where I am now. And no one sees that. No one cares about that. No one ever is like, oh man, yeah, have you seen Josh? Like, man, he spent like 8 hours writing the same letter, man. I don't know where he gets all the paper. Like, no one talks about, man, has his pencil run out of lead yet? Like, no one talks about that. Yeah. They just look at you and they go, you ain't making no money. Look at you. Yeah. Look at you, miserable. Look at you. Just get a job, man. Get like us. Be like everybody else. Yeah. One of us. It's like, no, man. I see it, man. I see it.
Well, and you, I think that you can pull back a little bit in track and field and skill sets. You need to forge the skill set. You have to actually go in and you have to lay down the skill and humility and positioning yourself where, I am going to push this through. And there's levels to that. Many people talk about the road to success or 10,000 hours. And I'm definitely someone that I share with people that it's not 10,000. Okay, you can claim 10,000 hours to mastery, but you're probably only 4 hours to quality, 400 hours to quality.
Yeah.
When you look at the amount of people and if you look at sales, right, it was like if there's 10 salespeople, there's only 2 that really sell most of the product, maybe 3 of them, and the rest of them are very small in comparison. And so I think that in this, when you talk about copywriting, you were we had a podcast is standing on the shoulders of giants, and you were becoming that. I think that's really important. I think that fast forward also going into that, when you work with somebody, what are some things that go through your head? Because I think something, and I know this is maybe even selfish on my side, because I think understanding a copywriter as somebody that is maybe going to assist you through that. What is that process? Because I'm familiar with if somebody says, use music, for example, hey, come and play for our band. And he's like, okay, but I don't know the songs. And there's a moment of they're going to have to actually get in with you. They're going to have to kind of get into unison. I think there's a copywriting skill. And then did you find that there's also a skill of the ability to write for them? Because I think that's the angle that people don't understand, that if somebody can get into your head and write, that is where you can genuinely write copy. What does that look like for you?
Oh, yeah. So I almost look at it like you're playing a character. And so it's almost like you're method acting, but on paper.
Yeah.
One of the things that people say I do really well is I could imitate people really well. Like if I talk from around you, I can start talking like them and stuff.
Sure.
So that kind of helps me. Like if I'm around my client for long enough, I can start to write the way they speak. Or if I look at enough of their copy, I'm like, oh, he writes like this. He writes bold and boisterously, or she's got a very soft and cute and playful vibe. Like, and so a lot of copywriters and marketers in general, when they approach clients, they don't have that skill set. They write like how they talk.
Yeah.
And the client's like, well, I would never say something like this. You're fired. You know what I mean? It's not a good look. But when you can definitely emulate the brand voice of the clients that you are working with, you pretty much separate yourself away from the competition.
I think that's kind of in those pieces. You're right. You will separate yourself. And I think that being able to separate yourself, it also has, I've gotten to know you, Joshua, and I think you it's a thin line of being able to have that personality as well, and not just being an introvert.
Yeah.
And, I think that that ability to cross the line and have a social experience allows you probably to put that in. I know that anybody that has ever worked with me, it's like, I basically say, look, here, it's an open book, man. You can say, and I'll vomit as much as I can. I'll try to position things the best I can.
Yeah.
So that skill's there. And I think that that's another thing that if you're ever going to hire a copywriter, this is just a personal experience, is try to position all of the assets so that they are not looking for things. If it's the way the page is laid out, whatever, position you so that you can do just the thing you do. You're not having to think of anything else. It's just like, that's the thing. And you probably get a better success that way.
Well, I really appreciate that you brought up like the social, having like the social aspect of writing copy. The difference between being an introvert and an extrovert and stuff like that, having a social life. I think that, and nothing against introverts, being a copywriter, you're going to be surrounded by a bunch of introverts. Like they would just rather, these are people that would rather just sit in the house and write copy and not have to talk to anybody, basically get paid from their laptop. And honestly, it's a smooth gig. But when you're able to get out and talk and have fun and create these stories and stuff, you're able to identify and relate to your clients, especially if they have products like or services like I've written for a lot of dating products and self-development and health and fitness, and you can't really talk the talk in copy that well if you don't really know like with these writers that get out there and they're like trying to write a dating offer, but they haven't had a girlfriend ever. It's like, what do you know? But when you could, when you have that, you know what I mean? Like
I say this in the nicest way, and I tell you to do the job, but and in that, I always wonder, is like, do you have a girl? Are you a player? Are you, as the kind of like, well, no, I'm kind of I put my dating on the side burner. I'm like,
yeah, well, see, here's the thing.
No. You should be able to go out there and date and tell people how to date.
And I'm not knocking anybody. Like there's skilled copywriters that are just complete nerds that do not go out there and they're just like, hey, I know exactly how to say what to say because I just been in the industry for a while. Sure, but when you've done a little bit of what your client is saying that they've done, like, if it's getting laid or dating a lot or whatever the case, and you know what it's like to interact with the opposite sex, then when you're writing the copy, you can like write in a way that really shows that you know what you're talking about because you've actually been there. Just like if you're in the health and fitness niche, if you don't go to the gym, how are you going to write about, like, how are you honestly going to write about going to the gym? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's goofy.
I think that some people would say, like, I've been told, it's like, hey, Jason, you should be a motivational speaker. I'm like, I'll stand on stage and talk and whatever, but I'm going to tell you what my life's like. If that motivates you.
Yeah, right.
Is it? Because the down and the dirty and everything, that should be the motivation. I think that the ability to relate to people. Yeah. And I think we're in a society, I think you would agree, that we're more in a relatable society than we are in a presentation society.
Exactly.
And that transition is changing with youth and just in the entire, sphere of people, of the talk shows and things like that. We're not just on the scene. It's like, okay, this is what I'm going in the back scenes and things like that. So you fast forward. One other thing, I'll kind of jump in there a little bit, and I thought something was really cool, and it kind of goes back to kind of track and field and things like that. But one of the things I think is really cool about Joshua is that I'm a big proponent of people using their bodies and using what you have at the age that you have, because you're never really going to be able to have that muscle memory react as fast. You're never going to be able to do those things. They do go away. So I wanted to tap into this because I think it's important that if you're listening here, to get out there and do things that are not just your job sitting in front of this computer. You're going to have more stories than other people. You're going to have better relationships with people. Yeah. And you're going to look back. And I think one of the things that I was going to talk with you about is that I went in and saw your social media. It's like, salsa, bro.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Salsa is food for my soul.
I think it's a rhythm, right? Rhythm, teamwork. What got you into that? I'm gonna have to say, was it Tim Ferriss? But I think you went your own.
It was girls. That's what got me into salsa.
All roads lead to women.
No. Let me stop. I really wanted to get better. Like I love to dance. I used to dance all the time. I used to be into hip hop. I used to crump dance. I mean, I was all about dancing. And
I haven't heard that in so long.
Oh yeah, I used to be part of a crew, man. You like the tie dyes and all of them. Yeah. I mean, I didn't kick it directly with tie dyes, but I kicked it with people who kicked it with tie dyes.
Sure.
And a lot of the people that I used to dance with back in the day, they've ended up on America's Best Dance Crew and they're doing all that stuff. And I never got that far, but that's fine. I was famous by association, kind of, sort of.
I haven't done the show like this, and so as I'm doing this, I feel like I'm on the. I feel like I'm on the commentator of like a basketball game or something. I feel like I'm like looking at theirs. I feel that way. Yeah, I just totally feel that way.
Yeah, no, man, you're hanging out with Josh Copeland.
Yeah, I'm hanging out with Josh.
It's always fun.
You just got doing some salsa.
Yeah,
I think the thing that I wanted to bring up, and the reason I was bringing that up is, how does it feel when you put your head to the grindstone, copy, and then you can let go and then go do something that has nothing to do with what you're doing? What kind of value do you get out of that?
Ironically, it's relieving, right? Dancing is a stress reliever, but I think it's a stress reliever specifically for those who live the laptop lifestyle like myself, copywriters, graphic designer, whatever. If you are on your computer 8 hours a day, or whatever the case, or whatever, it's good to do an activity that takes you out of your head and back into your body. David Data talks about in The Way of Superior Man. He talks about like how, getting back into your body is a way to tap into the feminine energy and also the good stuff. I think that when we're all up here all the time, we forget what it feels like to be in our body, and then that's when we stop. Like you feel like you're not alive anymore. You feel cut off almost. But I like to do things that kind of put me back in my body so that my head doesn't explode. And one of those things I like being around dancing and music and salsa. And that's one of the things that salsa and bachata and that whole Latin scene does for me is it allows me to kind of just like get back into my body and moving. And, because I've always been active. And one of the reasons why I love salsa so much is because you could do it forever. You could always practice martial arts, but one kick to the head and you might die.
I say I do Muay Thai even as I get older. I'll still do Muay Thai, and I always say that I've continued to. I mean, I can roll and I do some jiu-jitsu, but ultimately I say, look, that's the transition. I can do jiu-jitsu for a very long time.
Yeah,
lay there and move your hips and things like that. So I would fully agree with you that do something that will last a long time. And I think that that's an amazing thing, because you put yourself on a path of something to do later.
Yes, you can dance forever. There are, and the cool thing about it is you could always get better. I mean, there are people who are like in their 60s, 70s still dancing salsa, and because you're dancing, you feel younger, you look younger, you can move still, you're still flexible, you can still do things that you could do in your 20s, and it's attractive, it's fun, it's a way to meet new people. It's awesome. I love salsa dancing and all that stuff. And
I think that as I went through here, I think that one of the things also that comes about, and then we can transition to two different areas that I really wanted to tap into.
Sure, yeah.
But
hanging out with you, man.
I think that as well, pushing yourself for a goal. And again, I position this on purpose. Because having outside accolades is going to give you look back on your life, and you're going to say, I did things outside of my work. And I encourage people to do that. The bucket lists, if you have them, they're going to go through it and go from there. And dude, you did a body show, bro.
Oh, bodybuilding. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I'm always fascinated in that journey, because it's things that are all or nothing.
Yes.
And you're in competition with people that are willing to go to certain levels, and there's a mind game that's there. And through that process, you did a bodybuilding show. Why don't you share with us a little bit about that process? Because I think there's a lot of entrepreneurship, a lot of the business mind, the mindset that goes into accomplishing something like that. And what would you say that process taught you in life?
Right. So yeah, the process was I mean, it was unlike anything I've ever experienced. I've done sports, I've done sports. I've rest and recreation, stretching. No, man, like bodybuilding is totally different because your diet plays an extreme role. And so whatever you do, whatever workout you decide to do, if you like your diet in your water intake and cardio, like those three things, you're going to lift weights. You're gonna sleep on time. You're gonna do these things. You're gonna not drink. But man, like the dieting, that was the hardest part. But what I really appreciated, the reason why I wanted to do bodybuilding was because I didn't want to just kind of go halfway, And I remember, like in the midst of it, when I was doing posing, I had to get a coach for posing.
Yeah.
And my coach asked me, shout out to Brandon, Mr. USA.
Brandon, Mr. USA, shout out to you.
Yes.
Like worked at a strip club. Let me redo that again.
No. Hey, he's a bad man, bro.
That is awesome.
He was super IFBB pro. Like that guy, he's like the posing master.
Surround yourself around great people.
Yeah, it's environmental exposure. It's what Jason Capital talks about a lot of times. You surround yourself around people who are really in it. It's not like going to Planet Fitness and watching people kind of work out. Yeah, it's like immersion. Man. You immerse yourself into the place where people go to get fit, to where it's their life. They're posing in the mirror, they're doing poses, they're talking about freaking creatine. You go there, they got a supplement store. It was almost like the gym that I go to, TG in San Diego. Shout out to everybody.
Shout out to everybody.
I'm just grateful. But yeah, like. Yeah, it's like a dive bar gym. Like there's no fancy nothing. It's just that's all you hear in the gym. Chains, freaking heavy lifting, weights. They look like they're old and dirty and crusty, but people are still there. They're just grit. It's the personification of grit.
Yeah,
and
because at that level, nothing really matters. The quality of clothing doesn't matter.
Nope,
none of it matters.
It's just about gains.
You're in it, and that's it.
Gains. And so I remember one day I was posing, and like my posing coach Brandon was like, "Yo, why are you doing this? It's like you don't, like what? Why don't you just work out? Like, well, you don't have to do a show. Like, what are you trying to prove?" And I was like, "Because I want to do it. I don't want to just go to the gym. I go to a gym full of monsters, and I want to be one of those. I want to do it for real." And he looked at me and he goes,
"That's so powerful, man.
All right, let's get back to posing."
Yeah.
And I stepped on stage, man. I was about to pass out because I hadn't eaten, but I was like negative 3% body fat. Yeah. But I was on there and I did my thing. It was my first show. And I posed with the freaking monsters, and I was a beast. I became a beast of my own. It was great.
You did. You look like an animal, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
I mean, a specimen, I think would be a better.
No, I like animal. I like animal. It's got more grit to it.
It does. Something. I think there's something, and this is something that can be talked about multiple times, and that is you just tapped into something that I think that can be brought up in this situation, and that is that if you put yourself in a situation where you're going to be with a coach, there's a trick that happens, and that is, what he was, and I don't know if this was the position, let me put words in your mouth, but when he was asking you that, he was really looking to see the commitment that you were willing to have.
Yeah, the why.
And I found in life that the reason why people ask that is because coaches want to find a student. And they want somebody to succeed. And they have gone over and over again with people that said, I am interested, and they commit their life to you. And they make a decision to invest in you.
Yep.
And so I think this is a great learning experience that you're sharing here. And that is that in a situation like this, if you're going to have a coach you, the best thing you can do is not try to be the best quality, but be the dog.
Yeah.
And then they're going to guide that dog in the right direction because they have been there and they know what it takes to get there. And so I think that scenario. So I just wanted to bring those up because Josh has a lot of really cool accomplishments that I think people can look up to, man. You're at a place where people look up to guys like you. Genuinely, they do.
Appreciate you.
There might be another Joshua in their town, but you're the bloodline that people look up to. And so I'm going to move that over to another topic, from bodybuilding to, a scenario that I say you should still take if you get the chance, but you had an opportunity to work for ClickFunnels.
Yes. So yeah, ClickFunnels, that was a dream come true. Before I get into ClickFunnels, I wanted to say, I think the reason why I was able to do a bodybuilding competition was because of spending all the time as an entrepreneur. And not having and knowing what it feels like to have your back against the wall, not really having a life raft in a lot of situations.
Yeah.
And just having to bet on yourself all the time. That definitely played a part in me being able to actually go through with it and make it to the finish line. Which is why I'm thrilled.
Really good point.
I'm thrilled to be on your podcast because I know that, from your last episodes that I've seen, that's what you guys talk about. And so that's pretty sick.
It is, man, because it's a bunch of bullshit in the in between.
Yes.
There's so much unknown. Am I gonna quit? Am I gonna keep going? Am I full of shit? Am I an imposter? Do people look at me like this? There's all that stuff that goes into your head, and you have to put yourself in a headspace. It's like, regardless, I always say this to anybody I've ever worked with and I coach and things like that. It's like the engine does not care about the terrain.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I always look at like a Jeep, crawling through the hills. The motor's running the same.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, when you choose that you're going to go, you got to keep the RPMs up. You got to keep it going. And sure, you're going to hit the rocks and you're going to have to crawl. You're going to move all over the place. But the reality is that motor just keeps going, and it's that grit.
Yep.
And you look back and you're like, how did I get through this? But, after the show and it's like done, did you go through that moment of like, what do I do tomorrow? Like, was there's many times people talk about an internal sadness.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know what to eat. I was like, because I was like, oh, you can eat now. I'm like, eat what?
Yeah.
What? Eat sweet potatoes again?
Yeah.
Eat chicken breast again?
Sure.
They were like, no, man, you could actually eat. Like, so I had to go through that phase, and it was like, oh, I guess I could drink a little bit. And then eventually I was able to go back to civilian life, so to speak. But you do feel like, oh man, well, I did all this, and if I don't want to lose it, I don't want to go back to where I was.
I think that that applies, and anybody will tell you this. There's a story of a guy. He said he was watching it or so. He says, I was in a position to sell my business for $500 million. And I had been preparing for this acquisition being acquired for 6 months. And he says, I was going through this process over and over and over again. And how was it going to feel? And I was going to go get this, and I was going to live my life, and I was going to do all these things. He's like, and so we went to the meeting. They okayed the deal. I signed it off and wrote like whatever, how the transfer was and everything like that. He's like, and I went up in the hotel. I went into my hotel room and I sat down on my bed and I grabbed a beer and I had some Doritos. He said he was sitting there and he's like, I did all that and I'm still having a beer and eating some Doritos.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was the journey though.
This is the journey. Yeah. It's not so much just I think, but it's interesting. They say in order to appreciate the end, you have to love the journey. But a lot of the times, the end isn't what it's cracked up to be.
No, because you're used to the hill. You don't recognize that you're chasing something.
Right.
And then once the chase stops, who are you?
Yeah.
There's an identity issue.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I experienced that crisis when I was about to graduate college and I was trying to write for BuzzFeed and I got denied. I was like, oh, well, so I'm going to, I got this degree and I got no job lined up. I got no internship lined up. I got nothing.
Yeah.
Why did I even have to go to school for this? Like, you know what I mean? And like, I didn't have to even get a degree. And then I had to go through that whole thing. And I was like, oh, I'm depressed. What do I do now? So luckily I was able to get into copywriting faster and, see what that was. But if I didn't have copyright in my life, I would just be like, I don't know what I'd be.
I think that you did something that had activity and moved you through, and then you had something that could make money. And I think that was kind of some pillars that are important in life. Yeah. As you went through that, I'm going to pull the curtain back again, draw you back.
Okay.
But you got an opportunity to work, close Russell Brunson.
Yeah. So
Click Funnels, little shout out.
Yeah. So yeah, I know.
Some water if you want some water.
Oh yeah. I wrote for ClickFunnels. Shout out to ClickFunnels. Oh man, that was great.
And so as you, a couple things that I want to go through, maybe you can answer them pretty quick. One, how did that come about? I mean, there's how many writers out there, and then an opportunity, right? One.
Yes.
And then the other one is, and I've had this discussion with you in the green room, but I had this discussion with you, and that was that in process, what did you learn on a large scale of producing content to have it go through a production line and then be sent out? Because I think there's probably some misconnections on how those things happen. And I think they happen differently in bigger organizations. So the first one, how'd you get your opportunity? And then, what was your experience with the process? So
I used to be a part of this big copywriting mastermind called the Copy Accelerator. And so they had these copy job board list, and there would be people that were representatives of ClickFunnels that would come in, and they would put these job offers out looking for exceptional talented copywriters. And so at the time, I had just hired a copywriting coach with the little money that I had, and I was like, well, he's like, yeah, I could help you get clients. And so one day he gave me this job board. And I saw ClickFunnels on there, and I was like, "Whoa!" ClickFunnels posted this job board offer, but they posted it like 3 weeks ago, and there's like 100 people that applied to it already. And he was like, "Well, apply anyway." I said, really? Said, yeah. 100 people already applied. They're gonna. You want me to apply for ClickFunnels, the ClickFunnels?
What a great lesson here.
Yeah, and they were like, "Yes." He was like, yeah, just apply. His name is Ning Lee. That's my copy coach. Shout out to Lee. Shout out to Ning Lee. I'm packing out shout out today. Ning Lee is the greatest coach ever. So I said, okay. So I wrote up a letter. I emailed Heath Wilcock and Kevin Richards, who they both are like big heavy hitters at ClickFunnels.
Sure.
And I wrote this cool letter, and to my surprise, they didn't respond. I was like, well, they didn't respond. He's like, okay, we'll just keep applying. I keep writing them, keep following up. So I must have followed up with them for like 6 or 7 weeks straight. Like, hey, still
hold on, quick question. In the follow-up, did you try to use copy?
No. Okay. Let me throw it out there. So if you're trying to apply for a job, like apply for a copy job, do not use copywriting.
That's what I was going to say. Don't try to convert someone.
Yeah, they know what you're doing, and it's corny, and just don't do it, man. Heath Wilcock is like an A-lister. If I was to try to write some copy to convince him, he'd be like, "This asshole, get it out of my what is he? Who do you think he is?" So I didn't want to do that. I was going to be as genuine as possible. Like, sure. I just want to write for ClickFunnels. So I kept following up. Hey, just letting you know I'm here. Hey, just letting you know I'm here. Hey, by the way, remember me?
Powerful, man. Yeah.
And then I think after I would follow up like maybe twice a week. And then after a while, once a week. And after a while, I finally, hey, Josh, sorry. It took so long to get back to you. I mean, we have so many applications. And I just look at Ning like, see, I told you. Yeah. But hey, can you send us some samples? And so I sent them more samples, and they were like, cool. And then they didn't hear from them for a long time again. And I was like,
Yeah.
So I kept following up. Hey, man,
Yeah.
I'm still here. Hey,
Trying to get into Harvard.
yeah, trying to get into Harvard. And so they're like, so I finally was able to land, a meeting with one of them. This guy named Kevin Kitchen, and he was in charge of a specific unit of ClickFunnels. So ClickFunnels has a bunch of different products that nobody knows that they own, and they were like, hey, well, let's start off with just one project, and if it works out, then we could possibly talk a retainer.
Yeah.
So then, we got the retainer. We got the project, and they're like, just write me a proposal. We'll get back to me, and we'll see if we can work this out. So I went to my copy coach, and I was like, hey,
How do I position this?
how do I position this?
Sure.
Right. Listen, coaches will save you from like everything. Yeah. Having a coach is like a cheat code to being in business, having somebody above to kind of just help you, polish your weak spots. I gave my letter. I freaking gave my proposal, and I think I originally charged him like $5,000. And my coach was like, "What? No, charge him 13." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
It's like, is that okay with you? And I was like, I never charged that much money for.
I'm doing this for you. I'm just now going to position this. You told me to do it.
Yeah, he's like, no, do it. He's like, charge you to see what happens. You're writing a long form sales letter. You're writing this, that. Just write it, just see what happens. I said, okay. And I did it, and I submitted it, and they were like, okay, well, how about we just settle for 10? And I was like, oh, I guess that could work.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, I was like, ClickFunnels got money. I know they got money. So yeah, I landed that, and then I was like, well,
confidence also would come with what you charge.
yes.
And that's
I
probably what he was saying is like, if you go too low, they're going to assume that you've never had a job like this.
exactly.
Mhm.
And so I went it there, and I charged 13. They were like, well, we'll settle for 10. So I got the job, and I was ecstatic. And then the first thing I did was like, all right, Ning, help me write this thing. So I was writing it. I wrote it out. He's like, oh, this is good. Let's try this. And he helped me with it, and I submitted it, and they loved it.
Wow.
Then I got another project. Okay, let's do another project. Same price. I said, okay, boom. And I did the same thing with Ning. Oh, turned it in. They loved it.
Wow.
Then the third one, and they were like, okay. Actually, ClickFunnels were so cool that they were like, after the first letter I wrote, they were like, hey, we need you to write this, and we're also going to do another meeting because we also have another project for you, before I was even done. So like 2 projects in, I was going to do the third one. They were like, hey man, we pretty much we're kind of over this whole project by project thing. Why don't we just give you a retainer?
Wow.
And so I was like, well, you guys are already paying me $10,000 a month. Why don't we just start there? And then they were like, we'll pay you $9,000 a month. How's that sound? And I was like, well, I guess I can do that. Meanwhile, never forget, this is a 6-figure retainer. And I'm like, what the, so they paid me a 6-figure retainer.
Yeah.
And it was all because like, I just was consistent, and and so I was ecstatic, and I was able to go to Greece that year. I was able to fund my way to Greece. I was hanging out with a lot of the copywriter friends. We went to Mykonos, had a great time.
That's amazing.
And then I came back from Greece, and the ClickFunnels flew me out to Boise to meet the team. And let me tell you, everybody there is a genius in their own right. Yeah, the media buyers, the graphic designers, the other copywriters, the product managers. I mean, Russell Brunson himself. Sure, Russell Brunson likes to wrestle. He challenged me to a wrestling match, but I didn't want to get beat up. I should have at least attempted.
I tell you?
I should have at least attempted to wrestle him, even though I know I would have just got wrecked.
I said this as somebody that wasn't a wrestler, but enough jiu-jitsu things. Your relationship would have flourished, because it's like the wrestling is a very intimate thing that you can never take away.
Oh,
and so it's one of those things. So I told Josh, I was like, look, man, next time you're there, you're going to go to him. You say, hey, man, I'd like to kind of do that. And I wasn't telling you because I don't think maybe he'll pin you and put you in a position, but you're an extremely athletic guy.
Oh, thank you.
And I think that one thing I always tell people all the time is someone that fights and maybe has skills to, or at least have done enough to say I've learned that I can kick a lot of people's asses, but I also learned a lot of people kick my ass. That ultimately, one of the things that people are afraid of is just a pure athlete.
Yeah.
And somebody that's an athlete has the ability to move with salsa and breakdancing. You would have been a lot tougher than you think. Hey, you would have had some heart and you would have went there.
Yeah.
Next time I'm going to be rooting for you.
Next time, if I ever get a chance, Russell, if you're watching this, I'm gonna. I don't know why. If you're down to wrestle, I'm down. But
you're already drooling.
It's called drool of nervousness.
Oh yeah, I'll Jason Starbuck here. I'll come and corner him.
No,
that'll be two bad things going on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll be able to say what most people won't be able to say is I wrestled Russell Brunson. I wrestled Russell.
Pretty good little tongue twister there. What a really cool experience, and I think that we've done a really good job in sharing a story that many of you guys can relate to, and that is that you've tried things and you've been put in a position where you're like, man, I got to kind of put my things back together. Mm-hmm. Insecurities, right? I mean, this is things that happen with business owners all the time. And then going off on your own and standing on your own 2 feet and positioning that. And I'm gonna go ahead and turn this to the next kind of our way through this and this out. And I was blessed to have Joshua. He had actually finished ClickFunnels. We had met through our good friend Dorian. How about a shout out to Dorian?
Shout out to Dorian.
I'm actually going to plan that. I'm going to say it right now. Dorian and Josh, we're going to be our first 3 people on a podcast. So I'm throwing that into the universe right now. But through that, you had actually remessaged me through a product that I'm working through, and you had finished that kind of say, hey, Jason, are you kind of looking for that? And kind of we have some synergy and some things that we were talking about. And you had cruised over about a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. And we had some food, right? Had a little food. And
he makes some really, really great steaks. If you ever are fortunate enough to be in the home of Jason Starbuck, make sure he makes you a steak because it'll change your life. Just saying.
Well, I mean, when you came in, I did plan, and something that I do like to do is I wasn't really a cook at all, and we talk about these things you learn how to do. And I was telling you a story earlier, like, I cooked every day, every meal for a year, and I was like, I'm gonna figure this out. And because I burned water, I mean, that was my biggest thing. But you showed up and you walked right in, and I've always respected people that you have some class, man. You just when I go with this guy, we go downtown, and it's just you got class, man. And I think that's really cool. I don't know if it's a lost art, but it's not, and you really keep that, and I think it's really cool. You could go from bodybuilding to GQ, bro. GQ. I don't know if it holds the legs anymore. GQ. I don't know if that holds anything. It's probably an 80s term, but
it still does. It's just different way. But I know what you mean.
QG now or something. But I am definitely going to say that you walked in and you had a Riesling and a bottle, and you had walked in and I didn't know anything about it, and you kind of walked in and hand me this thing. I said, wow, how kind. He's bringing me some olive oil. I swear to God. Well, and I'm looking down, I'm looking for some stems in the olive oil and everything like that. And you handed me this bottle, and you looked over at me and you said, this bottle represents some journey that I've been on, a little passion that I've been doing. And you said that I have a small reserve of this. And so I'm grateful to be a part of that. And so I wanted to tap into this. Okay. And it's called Ultra Vino. And Ultra Vino, I'm not going to go into, I'll let you do this. But it's a product that you created that has the ability to, you say it, no hangovers.
Well, okay.
Minimum hangovers.
It's a combat saying. I can't legally say that anything with alcohol can't give you hangovers.
Go buy this stock, but I'm not a financial advisor. How about that?
I'm actually not really supposed to talk about it, but what I will say is this. Okay, it's a wine.
Well, let you hold it. At least,
so I'm not without displaying too much, because NDA and stuff. It's a superfood wine that actively combats hangovers, and it's a wine that's completely organic. It's organic, biodynamically farmed grapes, no added sugars, none of that toxic stuff that they put in other wines, and then it's got this infusion of a mix of superfoods that I put in this wine that causes that promotes extra stress relief, enhanced calm relaxation, boosting your mood, euphoria, feelings of euphoria. You get like a warm body high, and you even get increased arousal for all you lover birds out there. And right now, this is just a proof.
I've been aroused the whole time.
Yes, well. So
some things don't go over as well.
Yeah. So
so this is I'd like to as we kind of close the podcast out, I'd like to give you a good luck, a toast to let's see if I can put this together. A toast to the journey that you've been on, a toast to new journeys that you're going to go on, and not only that, a toast to you of doing something passionate but using a skill set that you have. And I think that that's an amazing thing to do in life. So toast to everybody that's going to end up trying this.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much for being on the podcast. And after we drink this, why don't we share with them a little bit of how they can get a hold of you if they want to have a conversation or maybe talk about copywriting.
Sure, man. Well, the honor is all mine, first of all. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And so, yeah, if you guys want to get a hold of me, you can find me on Instagram. Josh wrote that. That's my handle. Or if you want to find me on Facebook, Joshua Copeland. I'll let updates on the wine coming soon.
Yeah.
But if you want to talk about copywriting stuff, I'm your guy. So yeah, just hit me up on Instagram at Josh wrote that, and I'll talk to you soon.
Really cool, man. Well, I appreciate you being on the Moved Entrepreneur Evolved podcast. I would appreciate also that we have other amazing guests that are on this podcast. As we release those, if you can like and subscribe, obviously, I'm going to ask you that. It'd be really cool. But to go back in some of the other episodes as well, we have some incredible guests that have been on there, really cool stories, and we look forward to seeing you come alive with this new one. Thanks a lot again, Joshua.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
If you like this episode, make sure you smash the like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Just like Nike is to athletes, Moved is to entrepreneurs.